Well, that's the nearest approach to being a bird. Straight into the air, wonderful mobility, and here I am down at Taymouth Castle. When Queen Victoria came here, she came from London, first of all, by yacht, and it took 66 hours, and then she travelled the slow way to Taymouth. She wouldn't travel by train, the reason being there had been 45 accidents at that time of the birth of the railways. But it was the railways that brought people to the Highlands and created an era of change, which of course I saw in my own lifetime. And more recently, more dramatic changes due to universal motor car ownership. I'm away into Kenmore to see some of the changes. Robert Burns was a visitor to Kenmore long before Queen Victoria. This is what our national bard wrote. "Fain Breadalbin opens to my view, the village glittering in the noontide beam." The third Earl of Breadalbin had just built the model village of Kenmore when Burns came, and he saw something very unusual in the Highlands, a village that had been planned on a beautiful site above Loch Tay, where the river emerges on its way to the sea. The Earl had built neat houses on each side of the square, with the old kirk and its mound as a centrepiece, and he let the houses rent-free to tradesmen so as they would keep it tidy and neat. Queen Victoria was to see Kenmore 20 years after her first memorable visit to Scotland, but this time there was no feudal grandeur. Her hosts were dead, but the square was full of life. There was a fair in progress, and this oldest hotel in Scotland would be busy. The kirk was built in 1572. Discipline was so severe that action was taken against any villager who gathered hazelnuts on a Sunday, and the poor had to be good attenders at the kirk if they wanted a handout from the poor box. I learned a lot about the kirk and how things are today from Kenneth McVicker, the parish minister.
This church was built in 400 years ago. We've just had our 400th anniversary in 1979. And but the great thing is that I like to remember that since 1794, I'm one of the fifth in the parish church. And I've been here 32 years, and another 10 years I will come up to the average. The villages round about have been very much almost rebuilt in some ways. And of course, a good deal of council housing has been built. Some of our hamlets have disappeared as living units, unfortunately. But it's quite amazing. I used to visit people who had no electric lighting in their housing and no indoor toilet facilities of any kind. Now that doesn't pertain. The main changes over the years has been the tourist industry, and that has kept our employment fairly steady. And one way and another, we in this part of the world have been most fortunate because instead of our population going down, it has risen.
The lines of Robert Burns almost anticipate this site, the outstretched lake embosomed among the hills, the eye with wonder and amazement fills. It was a surprise to me that the outlet of Loch Tay was such a mecca of sun worshippers. There's more to a beach than just paddling. When you have a motor car, you can carry a windsurfer or canoe, hire a sailing dinghy or a pair of water skis. And apart from a huge caravan park just round the corner, there's a marina and holiday chalets. When Burns was here, the 3,000 smallholders winning a hard living from the land didn't even know the meaning of holidays. Nowadays, scenery is a saleable asset. Even Burns, who was not noted for describing the beauties of the landscape, was moved by this place, where a tunnel has been bored through the hill, and when you've worked your way through it, suddenly you come in on this, which moved him to write, "Poetic ardours in my bosom swell, lone wandering by the hermit's mossy cell, the sweeping theatre of hanging woods, the incessant roar of headlong, tumbling floods." Guests of the Breadalbins sometimes get more than a view, for as they emerged from the tunnel, a wild Highlander would leap down with a scream, brandishing his claymore as if to take Jacobite revenge. Of course, it's the Loch Shore that attracts most tourists now, and there's something here to make them stop and look. Old implements of the fields and kitchen, which a man with a great love of the countryside has gathered together. Cameron Thompson is a craftsman, wood carver and horn carver as well as a gardener. And since taking over an old house, being used as a hay shed in 1960, he has made a place of beauty of his bit of the Lord's burn. He calls these his wee men of the burn, and they never stop working as long as his water wheel turns them on. It's something that's exactly right, for in the old days, this burn was harnessed for 2 water mills. Cameron draws the designs for the art objects he makes from the antlers of deer and the horns of cows. Brooches and birds are his specialty. He built his workshop in 3 weeks and a completely new house in 18 months of spare time. His most important commission was a shipper's crook with a Mingus crest for the Prime Minister of Australia.
It's all the local deer horn and that we use for the knife handles and that. I buy them off the deer stokers and slaughterhouses and knackery wagons. Just how I started when I was a bairn, I suppose, whittling my mother's kindling sticks and getting into trouble for making a mess in the floor when she was away milking the cows.
It was an interest that never lapsed at any time. He just went on and on making things.
I just kept going at it. Before I come here, I made stuff and sold at the shops and that, and then I thought I would have a go in my own. I just drew the things out, and made things, and well, the folk liked it and bought it. We do away not too badly. We make an awful lot of different things, especially for folk their own designs and that.
What's the most interesting object you've ever made?
Oh, maybe that a wooden horse I have there. It's I made that. It took me a long time to make it. It was a tree it blew down, and I kept the wood. A block it and always said I would make something with it, and I made this horse. And every now and again there's somebody offers me a ridiculous figure for it, and so I've given it to my daughter so I wouldn't part with it. My hobbies now is making fiddles.
And playing them.
That's my hobby now. But when I haven't got my garden, I do my garden in the summertime and make the fiddles the time of the snows.
Cameron has made 7 fiddles to date. He doesn't sell them, he gives them away. His ambition is to make a really superb instrument from local birch and Scots pine.
Keen in anything old, and I like the Gaelic too, and I like went to evening classes for it for a while, and I like the Gaelic.
So that explains how the name of the house is in Gaelic.
Aye, that's my name and my wife's name put into one.
And how do you pronounce it?
Camúirich.
Cam for Cameron.
And Múirich's Gaelic for Martha.
There are over 120 different things in this collection of Cameron Thompson's wares, each one special, handcrafted as only he knows how. His showroom is the old toll house, built in 1740, rescued from dereliction just in time to give this man a new life. Further west we come to Culin, another early natural magnet for the tourist. Culin even had its own railway company. 5¼ miles of it opened in 1886, continuing independently until 1923 before being taken over and finally closed in 1965. It's the motor car and the bus which brings the folk and the trade today. Way back in 1868, a crofter at Cullen struck a hoard of bronze articles, spearheads, axe heads, swords, bracelets, dating back to the people of 4,000 years ago who built this stone circle just half a mile from Cullen Bridge. New people of their time who had the art of working with metal. Loch Tayside is rich in stone circles, although few are complete because local folk use them for building. But the old trade of metal work still goes on, here at Keltneyburn Smiddy, which has an air of past centuries about it, though today the work is more likely to do with modern machinery than horses. John Cumming is an Arcadian, one of the new settlers who came here just at the right time to take over from the old blacksmith. What about the work?
Always plenty of jobs, large variety of work. We do the general forge work and making gate fittings, etc. We make gates and railings for new houses. We repair broken farm implements. It's pretty good in a creative line right enough, but a lot of it is just general repairs. I've been here 8 years altogether, and I was 5 years before that in a harn working for G.R. Smith. But I found out that this place was on the go. Mr. Law, he was the retired blacksmith here. He'd been retired for 2 years when I spoke to him about the place. And he was very keen to see somebody new starting up here. So that's how I came about getting into this place. And then we flit here after purchase about 3 years ago. So that's how it stands.
When John left Orkney, came to Loch Tayside and landed this place, he got more than just a fair variety of work. He also found a wife who became interested in metal work on her own account, using it more as a form of sculpture. Art for art's sake, if you like. Displayed for the tourist, she found it sold. She had been trained at Edinburgh College of Art as a potter. What made her switch crafts?
My husband started me off welding and brazing, and I just carried on from there. I still occasionally need help to make something square. I'm not very good at making things that are square and stand level, and I have to get my husband to help me with that. But most things I make all on my own. I like to just start with the metal itself. A lot of things I make, they take shape partly from the bits of metal that are there. You know, I work in a very cluttered kind of corner, and I have all sorts of bits and pieces lying round about me, and very often it's the pieces themselves that suggest the things I want to make.
The metal has certainly been good at coming up with suggestions. Look at the range of this finished work, bent and beaten from raw bits of metal to end up as genuine creations. Aye, the Loch Tay boat song, sung from the heart, and I'm on my way to meet the singer of it, Mary Sandeman, Anika to most of the world now because of her Top of the Pops hit Japanese Boy, but a gold medalist Gaelic singer to the folks of Loch Tayside. Mary's father, Pat, has had a love affair with Loch Tayside all his life, and ever since she was a wee girl, Mary has been coming here at weekends and on holidays, so she regards it as her second home. And now that she herself has a family of 2 lively lads, Ian and Duncan, she likes to bring them to Loch Tayside whenever she can. I feel lucky to have timed my visit so nicely. She's certainly looking well.
It's lovely up here, Tom. It's one place that I feel I can escape, relax and enjoy myself, and it also reminds me of my Gaelic history, which was very much brought to life in this area.
Here in Loch Tayside?
Here in Loch Tayside, yes indeed. When I was about age of 10, I started competing at the Gaelic Mod in Aberfeldy, which is just down the road here. Many happy memories of those days, and of course it brought me up to gold medal standard with the teaching of Joan Mackenzie. Took me to places like the Outer Hebrides, where I met my husband. And now history is a way of repeating itself because I've got the children started competing at the Mod and hoping that they will perhaps follow a little way in my footsteps. Duncan is doing pipes, learning to play the pipes at the moment, and this year we had him competing at the Aberfeldy Mod too. And Ian was doing a little bit of recitation at the Mod too. And history is a funny way of repeating itself because it was exactly the same competition at exactly his age that he has now won the same prize that I won all those years ago.
Giles, ha cúbig acamsa echo dúddi gôl pol mór fatta it sy'n dronach go fŵr. Giles, ha mar anymydd ach sarte sin o goi. Noed vis me is on clwychedish sam rwyes von voort.
Now, since you've reached the top of the pops, your image has changed a bit. But you haven't changed any. Is your affinity to the Gaelic still as deep as ever?
Very much so, and I'm very conscious of trying to keep that side of it going. When I'm dashing off to Germany or to Dallas or wherever, I still always carry with me Scottish and Gaelic traditions. Can you imagine me sitting in the middle of Luxembourg, for example, wearing a kimono and my funny black wig and singing a Gaelic song?
Were you doing that?
But yes, I was.
And
Yes,
how did it
indeed.
go down?
Went down an absolute treat. People are fascinated, and this is what I feel I like to do, is to sort of spread the word abroad that we do have our own culture, we do have our own history, and it all stems back for me to Loch Tay.
Wonder if you can remember the first song you ever sang in Gaelic.
Oh, yes, I think I can. Hami ski smilum heen, buenyaranich dunan, and that is, I'm tired pulling bracken all alone by myself.
How about giving me a wee snatch of it?
Hami ski smilum heen, buenyaranich, hami ski smilum heen, buenyaranich dunan.
Remember the song. Mary owes her interest in Gaelic to her father, and it was he who started her eldest son Duncan on the pipes 2 years ago. His tutor now is Mr. Simpson, who teaches schools in the central region. He's playing as Collins Cattle, and very expertly too. Since the time of the mysterious people who built the stone circles and their successors who brought the craft of working in iron, man has been changing the landscape. The mighty Breadalbin family had all of Loch Tay to do what they liked with, until death duties and financial decline forced them to sell off their Taymouth castle and 500,000 square acre estate. Under a new owner at Remini, Duncan Miller, the village of Acharn has prospered exceedingly with mechanical engineering as well as farming. How many people live here today?
It's a community of about 140, 50 souls, and it has very, very diverse interests. There is estate interest, there is farm interest, we have some forestry. There is an engineering workshop that sends timber master winches all over the world. One went to Hungary last week, one went to British Honduras, one's going to Southern Ireland in a few days. So we have that economy. We've got local authority houses, local authority people living in them, working for roads and other interests, and some people working in Aberfeldy. So we have a huge variety of interests in this little community.
And in your particular estate, 7,000 acres, what kind of territory is that?
It's mostly moorland, high moorland over 1,000 feet, and that accounts for 6 and a bit of the 7,000. And on that high moorland we farm the sheep, and I farm the deer just as carefully as I farm the sheep.
For sport?
For sport and yield of venison, but basically for sport. And we also have some pheasants, and we've started to let the pheasant shooting as another side of the sporting activity from which we gain an interest and which the community, by providing beaters and so on, also have a share. I'm very happy with tourism, provided it's kept in the right scale. My whole theory of a community is that they ought to have different and diverse interests and not all the one. So I try and fit tourism into the economy of the community we have here in a proper and decent scale. And here, in the holiday interest that we are creating with the Loch Tay lodges, we've got this water resource which is available for our people who live here. They can go out on the loch, there's a yacht moored out there, and they can sail. But as far as I'm concerned, this bay has no powerboats, it's sailing only.
And what about this old pier right beside you?
Well, I landed at that pier about 1919, and I landed off the old Sibylla, a coal-fired steamer which used to tow the barges which served the community all round the loch.
So you've seen a wheen of changes in your time?
A lot of changes. But one change that I do appreciate is that this community, I think largely because of our intention to diversify the interests, this community is healthy and it is growing, and there are more people and there are more children and there are more houses than there have been for the last 30 or 40 years.
And new tourist developments too. Special facilities for owners of sailing boats. A fine building of historic and architectural interest has been altered inside to make 6 self-catering chalets. And just along the road from here, near Kenmore, is the Loch Tay Leisure Centre with self-catering chalets and restaurant, opened in 1982. The position of Loch Tay in the Central Highlands makes it an ideal touring centre. I'd say of Loch Tay as a whole, from Culin to Kenmore, along the 15 miles of each shore, that a lovely balance has been held between tourism and the traditional ways of earning a living from the countryside. My impression is of happiness in a country that's probably being enjoyed by more people than at any time in its history.